Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
Hi, I'm NK Mancos. I write all kinds of fiction. I do it under 4 different names. Right now, I'm really into writing and reading the YA books. So today for you, I've selected a scene from my new book, Into the Pink. It's a YA that involves high school students that find out that they're fae. So they're fairies, they're sprites, they're all kinds of goodness like that. So I'm going to start kind of in the middle of the book, picking up where a lot of the other action has already happened, but it'll give you a good taste of kind of the personality of the lead character, Peony Nash. Chapter 5, Repercussions of the Super Popular. Next day at school was probably one of the worst days of my high school career. No lie. You'd think I had shanked a cheerleader with the way Kylie and her friends looked at me. When surreptitious, dirty looks didn't work, she took another tactic. I went to my locker to change notebooks and stopped dead. The word whore was written across the front in red fingernail polish. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly before grabbing the lock and putting in the combination. I pretended the word wasn't there, though I felt every eye in the hallway on me. Anger was a lump in my throat, and I tried to choke down. My hand shook slightly, which was a miracle, all things considered. I walked to yearbook committee to pick something up I'd left the day before and headed to my seat. I stopped halfway there. The workstation was smashed. The computer screen had a hole in it. Not only that, but one of the big bronze Yellow Jacket statues from the bookcase had been ran through it. I stood with my mouth flapping like a fish on a dock. No words came out, but a series of unintelligible squeaks that were high enough for dogs to hear came from my tightened vocal cords. Some of my classmates laughed, the other half looked at me with sympathy. Then came the summons. Apparently, I got blamed for both incidents and spent a good 30 minutes in the principal's office. Mrs. Hanson, doctor actually, since she had her PhD in education, sat behind her desk like some medieval lord holding court. She was probably somewhere in her late 40s to early 50s, but looked as if she desperately chased her youth. Not that she was old, but all the plastic surgery she'd had over the years gave her a freak show appearance. I gave Mrs. Hanson a look of contempt as she continued to recite all the ways in which I'd been bad over the course of the last 3 years. Finally, I couldn't stand it a second longer, and when there was a break in the diatribe, I stood. "Sit down, young lady. You haven't been dismissed." Her glare told me I was on my last warning, but failed to muster up even one shit to give. "Oh, yes, I have. You've been dismissing me ever since I walked in." I pointed at the door. "You've already decided I was guilty on nothing more than substantial than the testimony of a girl who already hates me. Not to mention, she's a cheerleader, and you're the former coach. Sounds like a conflict of interest to me." I pulled out my phone. "You want to accuse me of anything else, you can call my father and explain it to him. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you about it." All right, so maybe the way I spoke to authority figures was a bit over the top. But I've never been one to believe just because someone held a position of power, they should automatically be respected. If Mrs. Hanson had been fair in her investigation, that would have been one thing. She wasn't. She'd taken Kylie's word as gold.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Today, we have the fabulous Miss MK with us, and she is so prolific and so exciting. And by the way, that reading was fabulous. So
Thank
we're
you.
going to get started right away because curiosity is killing me. So we're going to start with this book, and then a little bit more about you, so we can get going. So tell us, this is a series, right? Where does this series come from, and why are you doing YA? So talk to us.
The cover was the first thing. A friend of mine makes book covers, and she had them up on her website, showing them off, saying, "Hey, I have cover art pre-made for sale." I took one look at the cover, and I'm like, I have to have that cover. And as I'm saying that, an idea for a story and the title came to me. So it really was kind of an opposite thing. I didn't get the idea first and then look for the cover later. It was the cover actually gave me the idea for the story and indeed the entire series. So I worked that way to it. And I knew it was going to be Into the Pink because of just how the cover looked. And then I knew, oh, she looks so fae, the girl on the cover. So I'm like, it's got to be about fairies. It's going to be YA. It's going to be kids that didn't know that they were fae and what happens next. So that was the approach I took to it. And I can get ideas from anywhere. So it wasn't really unusual that it happened that way for me.
That is incredible. I like the fact that one simple thing, one image triggers the entire series. That is absolutely fabulous. YA is kind of broad. So what are we going with this? Is it action? What do you got in mind?
There is quite a bit of action at the end of this book. Is a kind of a scene reminiscent of Carrie. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So there is action. Basically what it is the Seelie and the Unseelie are at war, as they've always been. The children, which I call the Blackwell 16, because Blackwell is the town they live in, were found in the woods. And actually they were hidden by the Seelie court from the Unseelie and hidden in the human world. They're kind of like the reserve people that if the war starts to falter, they're going to be kind of like their pitch hitters when they come to their full powers. Unfortunately, they've had to suppress their powers to live in the human world. So now that they're getting to be adults, young adults, into maturity through puberty, they're all starting to manifest. And on all these blocks they had on them are starting to crumble. And basically the beginning book is Peony finding out about her talent, that she is a fae, starting to learn the course of her powers. Each book follows one of her friends. And the second book is about somebody you meet in the first book. And then the third book, which is a little different. That one took a little bit darker turn. And I'm kind of writing all of the books simultaneously. Obviously, this one's out already. The second book, Blue Day, I am in the process of editing it. And it should be up within a couple of weeks for purchase. With Envy is the third book in the series. And I think that title kind of says it all for it. The character in that has lived in foster care. She has been terribly physically, financially, and emotionally abused. It kind of like molds her character, but in some surprising ways. Even surprising to me as I write it, because I am kind of taken aback by some of these characters as I write them. I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. Even though they are part of my brain pan, but sometimes they just really take unexpected turns, and she's been probably one of the most surprising. And then the last book is Gold is the Sun. We meet in the first book the son of the Unseelie King. So it all has to do with war, actually, in the Fae realm. This is just kind of the outer shell of it, I guess you could say.
That is exciting. You have all, it is. You're talking drama, war, and a whole bunch of teenagers that don't know they have power.
Mm-hmm.
This is a chemistry made in like pretty much either heaven or hell. It's all going to blow up somehow.
And fun. A lot of it has humor in it too. Peony, you can tell from the reading I did, she's got a smart mouth, and that is 100% me putting those words in her mouth like that. Some of the other characters, not as much, but she's kind of edgy. Jilly, who is the principal character in the second book, is more of a hippie cheek, somebody that takes a lot of time, even though she's very privileged. I mean, she comes from a very wealthy family. They have servants, and she has spent her life trying to help others. She has worked in a soup kitchen. She collects things for the poor. She helps women at women's shelters apply for positions and jobs and schooling, and any way she can think to help humanity is what she's done, because her parents have pretty much neglected her and let her do her own thing. But you find out in the second book that there were kind of reasons for that. She is very resilient, and she's nice. She's probably the nicest of them all, but she finds her mean streak. It's kind of a different type of revelation of a character. Usually the hero's journey goes from maybe not being necessarily strong, but finding that inner strength and then building on it to get to the final action in the book. This is more of her being soft, and her strength is kind of thrust upon her, for lack of a better word.
How did you decide to go, I got the cover part. How do you get into the mind of YA? Because that's interesting, and you have a connection. You can speak that teenage language that sometimes we take for granted, and that dialogue, that snappiness to them. And then in between, what do you tap into to decide to do, I'm going to write YA, and we're going to do it from the first person?
Well, first person wasn't as difficult to decide, even though this is only my second series I've ever done in first person. My first one was actually geared more towards adults. A lot of the YA nowadays coming out is definitely first person. I think readers in that age range can identify more with the characters if it's first person. So that was definitely a conscious choice to do it that way. And since I had at least one series under my belt, I felt pretty confident that I'd be able to pull it off. As for the speaking like a teenager, that was probably one of the biggest challenges, because I don't use a lot of, I guess, what I hear students saying nowadays or kids saying nowadays. I try to get it somewhere in the middle between something adults could read and enjoy and something that teens would read and enjoy, and I didn't want to necessarily date it. I don't mention what time frame it is. I don't even mention what state they live in. It's just the town. So I didn't want to put any telltale signs of that in it that would make it dated. I want to say that mostly some of that dialogue, it comes from trying to be young at heart all the time. I mean, I watch comic book movies. I'm the world's biggest geek. My husband and I still do Comic-Cons. He's an artist. And I just think being young at heart kind of helped. I'm in my mid-50s and I don't feel like it. I try to live young.
You also don't look like it, so don't worry about it. 50 is just a number, so no.
Thank you.
The energy and the bubbly comes across, and it's fun. I think that goes a long way with the young at heart, because usually as we get older, we feel like we need to write very serious, very dark books to kind of connect with that. But the fact that it's fun and light and it has that essence to it, it makes it really interesting and very dynamic.
I also work in the medical profession, so I see a lot of darkness there. But there's also what we call the gallows humor that goes on in the hospital, because quite honestly, if you don't have some kind of a dark sense of humor, it will break you. Especially right now during a pandemic, you have to be able to have that pressure relief valve. I think that kind of translates to my writing a lot, being able to look at maybe the dark humor in something and maybe ratcheting it up a little bit, and saying, okay, let's not take this situation too seriously and kind of put a sarcastic bent to it. So I think that helps too.
I like it. Your combination is really fun. I enjoy the fact I have a dark sense of humor, so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And it might be the military me, but it makes things a little easier to handle, and it kind of gives us a place to go and move forward. So, Madame, you mentioned you have 4 pen names, which it's blowing my mind. Are you actively working in all 4, or do you switch back and forth? How does that work?
I want to say yes, but it's been a while since I've worked in 2 of the other ones. I have open books on the other 2 names, but I haven't actually opened the files in a while to write on them, and I really need to. I keep hearing the voices in my head saying, work on it, but I haven't. There's just not enough time in the day most of the time, because I do juggle anywhere from 5 to 10 books at a time that I'm working on, plus working a full-time job. It does get a little bit desperate at times, but I'm trying to really pump out this one series, this YA series right now, and that's under MK Mancos. Kathleen Scott at the moment, that's my other name, that I write a little bit hotter stuff, definitely the over 18 crowd. I'm working on my Gaslight Guild series right now, which is Victorian, magic, mystery, and very hot love scenes. So I'm working on that right now, working on the third book in that series. I just released the second book. It's Capturing Camille. I just released that one, and I'm working on the third one. I'm going to try to get that one out, hopefully sometime by the end of the year. MK Mancos is really the name that I write a lot of my stuff under. I do paranormal under that, which I have several series under that name, plus the YA. And I think I'm going to stick with that name for the YA. Then I have Kate Davison, who writes contemporary. It's contemporary romance, kind of with a twist. So there's some mystery involved in that, or just straight up contemporary romance. And then Cassie Sweet is I write my LGBTQ books under, mostly male romances. And I'm doing a sci-fi right now that takes place on a space station. It's called Mage Inc. The main character in it, he's an investigator. He's a magician, but he's also an investigator for Mage Inc. Incorporated that kind of services the entire galaxy. So it's space, but it's also magic. And there's a murder on the space station, and he's the investigator. There's one race of people that are necromancers. His kind of sidekick in this story is a necromancer who has to raise the dead after these probes have been in their ears that have fried their brain. So it's kind of like a Johnny Mnemonic, but kind of blown up, you know? And the necromancer can raise the dead so the investigator can see the last moments of their life, or at least hear what they said, their last words. And there's some interesting twists that happen in that book. I really, really am loving writing it, but it's kind of on a back burner right now. But I'm going to pull it out in the next few weeks as soon as I get some of these other ones finished. Because in addition to writing everything, you know, I'm doing the editing and the formatting and stuff like that for them too. So I only have X number of hours in a day.
I thought I was busy. You have officially put me to shame.
No, never that. Because I am terrible at promo. So,
oh my God.
If anything, that lags behind.
I was going to ask you what you were working on. My question was, what are you not working on? Because you have everything covered from all different spectrum. And it's so much fun. I'm like, oh God, I need to hurry up. I'm so behind on the power curve.
No, don't even think that. I've been writing for a long time. Some of these ideas have been percolating in the back of my brain for a while. Some of them are actually had been at publishers that I've gotten the rights back to. So I'm kind of going through tweaking them, putting a new cover on them, and republishing them out underneath my own banner. So I know it looks like a lot over the last couple of years, but really it's kind of like a rehashing of some of them and then putting some new stuff out too. I've been actively writing since 1993 when I wrote my first book, but I wasn't published until I think 2006 or 2007 was the first thing that I ever had published. So it's only been in the last 13 years that I've been published. And for that many years, I really don't have that many books out, but I've been, like I said, working full time at the same time. And it's kind of a challenge balancing the writing and the work schedule. Luckily, like I said, I work in healthcare, so I work 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week. When I'm not at the hospital, I'm at my desk writing. After I'm done with that venue for the day, I move and have a small laptop computer that I can sit in front of the TV and do editing and stuff. So I actually have 2 spaces in the house that I can write in. And I've been doing that for years, like moving around. I think I feel like I do a lot of my work that's better probably sitting at my desktop computer. And I didn't have one for several years. I actually had just used the laptop, but I had like one that I kept at the desk and then one that I moved around. I know it sounds funny. It just kind of worked out that way after my last desktop computer blew up on me. I'm like, yeah, no more of that. But then I switched to Macs from HPs and I was like, okay, I just want a desktop model now because if I am at the desktop, I'm going to sit my butt in the chair and I'm going to do more writing. Yeah, well, after a while, I decided I wanted another Mac that I could carry around.
I completely understand it, and I kind of joke with people because they ask, what are you writing? And I was like, believe it or not, I write on a tablet. I do edit on a desktop. I need something to edit that it is. But I'm with you. Like, I moved positions. Like, had an office, and the office didn't work. It felt very constrained. So then I moved to the couch, or I moved to another couch. So the moving around and the changing of space is absolutely, completely understandable. It is that
Yeah.
holistic flow of where your energy comes from.
Yeah, you really have to. And I got really spoiled when we lived in New Jersey before we moved back to Florida. My office, I had my own room in the house that was an office. Right now it's in like what should be the dining room in our house. But I had my own room and it had 3 huge windows that faced the street and our front yard. So I got so used to having my desk facing that way and looking out the window to be able to see outside that when we moved here, I was like, yes, I have to have my writing desk in front of a window. I cannot write where I'm not looking out the window or able to look out the window. I got to the point where that became important because I didn't feel so hemmed in. I didn't feel like I was sitting in a little cubicle or I couldn't see the light of day or the sunshine or whatever. I love natural light. Natural light and me get along just fine. I like it to work in a nice light environment. That's why usually I'll move to the couch in the afternoon. I can start turning on lights in there. More of the natural light's faded. And I'm starting to get into that afternoon slump. So I need to change, kind of like in baseball, the 7th inning stretch, you have to get up, so you can take me out to the ball game. But this is me. I just sitting in front of a TV and watching documentaries rolling in the background.
Your rhythm is exciting. It is such a balance of your space as well as your work. And it works with the different things that you do. Like your editing has a different pace than your writing. And you're switching heads very easily between. How long did it take you to learn that? Like, because that's a huge lesson that most people never see. How long did it take you to get in that space and in that flow?
Well, the first couple books I wrote before we bought our house in Jersey, and these are books that I have, well, I guess I published one of them, but I had to rewrite it before I did that. My husband and I lived in a small apartment that had these beautiful sliding glass doors that kind of looked out over the commons of the apartment complex. And we were all in the same space. So I could actually be working at the desktop and he would be like in more like the living room spot. I could look over my shoulder and watch TV with him and we could talk and everything. So when we moved into our house in 2000, and the living room was all the way down a long hallway at the end of the house, and I was in the front of the house. So in the evenings when he would get home on my days off, I wanted to spend time with him. So I would pick up and move my stuff and go out there. And he would usually be drawing. He's an artist, so he would be drawing or working on something. So we would sit there and watch TV. And that was our together time, to be sitting in the same room together, watching the same thing, but still doing our own projects. And then it just kind of evolved. And that's kind of how that started. But now it's just what I do. It's the way my life is. It's so ingrained now. I can't imagine not doing it that way because, like I said, that's our together time. That's when we're sitting together, we're talking, we're laughing, we're making fun of who's ever on TV, or we love to heckle TV shows together. So
do you guys bounce ideas off each other?
Oh yeah, all the time. He doesn't really understand the romance aspect of it, I hate to say. If I'm going one way and trying to put the romance part into it, he's going off somewhere else chasing, I don't know, butterflies or something, or blowing up something. Now, if I have a question about like staging a big military something in my book, or how best to kill someone or whatever, he's the man to go to. So I'm like, is this feasible? He's like, well, yeah. He has been a big junkie about reading books on war and warfare, and if I ask a question about World War II, he knows the answer. Not that I've written anything about World War II, but it's probably coming because I've been really fascinated with it lately, and anything from the 20s and 1930s. So I can bounce ideas off of him if I feel stuck, if I'm writing a blurb and I'm like, listen to this. Does this sound right to you? I can read it and run it by him. And then he's like, yeah, I ain't hitting any bells. And then I can rewrite it. He's like, oh yeah, there it is. He's also done voiceover work, has taken classes in voiceover acting. So he knows the rhythm of how things are supposed to sound when they're read. So it's all helpful. Also, if I say, hey, could you make me a map for this world I'm building? It's like, Yeah, sure. Why not? So I have maps that he's done over the years for my fantasy worlds and stuff. But it's fun.
It's a fun resource. Not only do you get to share this, he actually can create things on the side. So you have a little
Yeah,
bit of everything. That's exciting.
yeah. It's a good compliment to each other.
It's amazing that you have two artists that have the same storytelling ideas and beliefs, and you guys complement each other so well. Because sometimes you hear people going, yeah, nobody in my family wants to read my books.
I don't think he's ever read anything I've written. One time I handed him one of my books, and it sat next to his chair for like months and months and months. It had dust on it. And I said, "Are you ever going to read this?" He goes, "Well, when you're done with it." I'm like, "Been done 6 months now." So I stopped offering them to him. But he supports me in every other way. He does everything he can to let me go to my conferences and doesn't insist that he comes with me, even though I would love it. But we have 2 dogs, so somebody's got to stay with them.
You've been writing for a while. You have lots of experiences and you have been going through a lot of different types of genre. What is the one lesson you learned that you're going, oh my God, this could have been useful when I was starting out?
There's so many that crop up. And of course, when you ask that question, they all fly out of my head. And I can't zero in on any one. Those first few drafts that I did back when I first started writing were absolutely horrible. I say this with love and affection for them because without them, I would not be where I am today. However, I wish I would have taken all those books that I read over the years and learned more from them. I feel like I see people jumping in now, writing that they say, oh, this is the first book I've ever written, and it's absolutely perfect. And I'm like, how is that possible? How are these people channeling all these great authors of old? It took me so long to actually get up to this point. I wish I would have had a little bit more of that ability to be better from Jump Street. I guess that was probably my one regret, and that I didn't make it bigger faster. But who's to say that I would not have burned out by now? I think in the long run, all things happen as they should, and it's up to a higher power and not my pay grade. It's a question.
I like the way you look at it. How do you maintain motivated and consistent? Because it is 20 years in this business and you're looking even 13 in the publishing business. And you said it, people burn out very quickly. How do you stay motivated? How do you stay consistent?
A writer is who I am. I'm an author. You can't separate me from it. Honestly think I would probably be bored as hell if I didn't write. I'm always telling stories in my head as I do things. I'm working on pieces of dialogue when I'm washing dishes or putting on makeup or doing my hair or even, well, it used to be driving, but I started listening to audiobooks in the car, so not too much when I'm driving now. But I'm always got some kind of story running through me. And I don't think I would be who I am if I didn't write. I would probably find another outlet to do, probably something crafty, artsy or something, but I just can't imagine life without writing. To keep myself from burning out, though I do allow myself a day off every once in a while from it. My husband and I will go on a day trip somewhere and just enjoy ourselves and walk around, go to a museum. Like I said, we like to do Comic-Con, so maybe we'll go to a day trip to one of those. We love to go to historical sites, so we'll do that. Allowing myself that time and not thinking I have to get back to the book so soon. I do try to put myself on a schedule as far as when I sit down to write. I try to do 1,000 words on each book that I'm working on currently. If I make that mark, that 1,000 words, then I'll move on to the next book. Then I'm in that cycle of what I'm writing. So like I said, I'm doing all of the Into the Pink series. Castle Street Fae is actually the series name. I would work on, like, say, book 2, and then I would write 1,000 words on book 3 and move on to something in my Gaslight Guild series if I got 1,000 words in each of those, or I'd move on to editing, or fill-ins because, and fill-ins, kind of my tweaking when I'm writing. I tend to not write love scenes or some of the big action scenes at the same time I'm writing the plot and the dialogue and everything. I will put place markers in. So after I finish a book, I have to go back through and write that stuff. I will do my fill-ins and stuff like that. So I have to have time to do that as well. Try to structure myself, but I also do, like I said, I'll allow myself some time off because you have to regroup every once in a while. You have to, what I call, refill the well, whether that's sitting down and reading somebody else's books or allowing myself to do some kind of arts and craft project. I do jewelry. In the past, I've done cross stitch. I haven't done that in a long time.
You have so much things happening, but you can manage it very well. I like the flow that you carry and the fact that you understand, okay, I need a break. I need to do something else. I need to put this down. I need to move to different things. So you are able to move from one book to the other, which I think is amazing because I haven't managed that. You put it down, you pick it up, and you just flow through them. On a regular day, because you have a busy schedule, how long do you spend writing? Are you looking at a couple hours? Are you doing 5 to 10? What does that look like?
Depends on what I got on deck that day, because this is also on my days off from work. So I might have to go to the store that day or have a doctor's appointment or, do a couple of other things. I find I write better in the morning first thing. So sometimes I'll tell myself, okay, I'm going to get up, I'll feed the dogs, let them out, get them settled. I'll write 1,000 words on one book, go to the store, come home, do some editing. I find that once I get that break and I've left the house, I don't really want to come back to anything fresh. So anything I'm going to write that's fresh is either going to be done before I leave the house or it's going to be done on a day when I'm not leaving the house. And then I can move from one to another, get all my words in. I don't write on the same things all the time. I'll have like a principal book I'm writing on, which right now is book 3 of Castle Street Fae. So that one is going to come first no matter what. Today was a little different though, because I decided to switch it up and work on Gaslight Guild book instead. But that's just because I hadn't worked on it in a couple of weeks and I really needed to write the next part of the scene I was in. I do try to work on like some of the same things all the time just to get them out the door and then start putting other things into the rotation as I go.
Switching gears to you. What is your current reading list? What do you enjoy to read? Because you do a lot of writing. So what does MK's reading list looks like?
MK's reading list looks like her writing list. I read so many different genres, and I will go on a run for a while where only thing I want to read is high fantasy, or all of a sudden it's hard sci-fi. Then I'll go where I want just a light, fun, contemporary, small town romance, and I'll read like 3 or 4 of them. Right now, I'm actually splitting my time between 2 different books that I'm reading. One is Terry Pratchett, and if you've ever read Terry Pratchett novels, Discworld, oh my God. The man was a master at sarcasm and just hilarity, and I just adore his books. My husband reads them too, so we can pass those back and forth to each other. So I'm reading one of those, and then something on my Kindle. I'm a great person for buying stuff I see on Facebook. So if there's a Facebook ad for a book and it looks intriguing to me, I will absolutely go and look it up on my Kindle and download it if the price is right. So I saw one for a Regency romance the other day from a small press publisher, and I'm like, oh, this looks too funny. Ended up buying the 2 books in the series, and I started reading the first one this morning while I was waiting for the rest of the house to wake up, and got a good dent in it because, with my Kindle I can sit there and I can read it in the dark and not have to disturb anyone else. If I was reading the Terry Pratchett novel that I had started a couple days ago, it's actually a regular paperback, and I would have had to have a book light and stuff like that, or find another place to read. So I opted for the Kindle, and so I didn't disturb anyone and started reading another book. I have yet another book that I actually listen to. So the book I listen to in my car is a completely different one than I'm reading anywhere else. I am pulled in as many different places reading as I am writing. And that's not even including any research materials I might be looking at. I have another YA series that I'm actually kind of outlining. It starts 20 years after an alien invasion. Not only addicted to the show, Ancient Aliens, I'm reading the books that have been put out about the series just to get some of the little details correct. I have that I'm researching and, doing notes on and stuff. So I have a lot of stuff that I do, and that is totally different. And with me, research I found is kind of a rabbit hole, slippery slope, and avalanche all in the same time. It's kind of like a burrito of all those things they're put into it. And I find a lot of times it's easier for me to do what I call backwards research. I'm one of these people that I've always watched documentaries and read a lot and stuff. So I know a little about a lot of things, enough to write something convincingly. But if I want the detail, I will make a note in my manuscript and I will go back and actually read the details to be sure that I got them correct. That way I don't fall down the rabbit hole of research, because I have had books before. Several years ago, I was writing a book that had alchemists in it, and I bought several books on alchemy, and I was finding the book so fascinating that as I was reading, I was writing story ideas for other series in the margins. And I'm like, I am going to get no place because all these plot bunnies are hopping all over me and chomping carrots in my ears, and I can't get anything done. As you see, I'm kind of like all over the place. So I had to start saying, you know what, got to rein it in, got to focus, and it's going to be better if from now on you just write the book and fill the details in later. That way I know how to focus my research to be looking for exactly the piece of information I need. It kind of saves a little bit of time that way too.
That is such an amazing advice, because I'm with you. I will start working on something and get easily distracted. I was like, wait, what was I looking for? But this is so good. I love that. You do know I'm going to copy that, because I have 2 things that I'm supposed to be working on that I haven't, because I've been looking at research nonstop. Oh my God.
Let me tell you, have at it, because it has saved me so many headaches and so many plot bunnies. I have more story ideas right now than I can ever possibly write in my entire life. So I'm hoping that when I'm reincarnated, I come back as an author, because I'm definitely going to have to pick up where I left off.
I love it. It's like, I need to finish this series, so can we work in this god so we can finish the rest of it?
Exactly, right? I mean, I think maybe I can pull that off, but who knows? Some negotiating can happen.
I like the way you process. Hey, a little bit of this, a little bit of that can go a long way. Do you have an author that has influenced you?
So many. I think, honestly, for the more fantasy aspect of it, the first time I read a Mercedes Lackey novel, her Heralds of Valdemar, I was like, you mean you can get paid for this? You can get paid to write this kind of stuff. This is amazing. So I became a big fan of hers, and I was like, okay, I want to write fantasy, which is kind of funny that I kind of went in the opposite direction and started doing paranormal and romance, more of the, I like to say, science fantasy or space opera, because I like a good hard sci-fi novel, like Kim Stanley Robinson, a few others that I can't even, Bruce Sterling, that I really, really enjoy their writing, but I don't have the chops for it. And I know I don't. I do understand science, and I am addicted to documentaries about it, and I have my favorite physicists. Yeah, I'm a geek that hard. But
I wasn't going to say anything.
But for me to have to regurgitate in a book, I would rather leave that to the people who are better versed at it. So for me, making it a science fantasy, or fantasy that has blasters and, atomic capabilities and able to transverse the universe, makes it a lot easier. I don't have to explain how a faster than light travel ship works in order to get in it and use it. I guess this is me being stubborn and kind of pushing back. I feel like I don't have to do that because when I write a contemporary novel about a race car, I don't have to tell you how that works. People know it's a story. Just go with it. Catherine Asaro, as far as like the women writing science fiction, her and Anne McCaffrey have been big influences on me too. I love to read.
It shows. No, but I love it. I love the fact that you are a passionate reader as well as an author that has that balance into it. So tell us, madam, if you could give an advice to a brand new author, what would you tell them?
Don't quit. Listen to the advice that your peers give you that have been there, that have done that have made the mistakes. I see some things online sometimes where newer writers are kind of, well, I'm going to do it this way anyways. And it's to their detriment. Everyone's giving them advice saying, oh, don't do that, don't do that. But they do it anyways. It's kind of like the person in the horror movie that everyone's yelling from the theater, don't open the door, don't go downstairs. And they do it anyways. You know? And you're like, oh, that's going to be nothing but heartache and pain when you get to the bottom of those stairs. So don't go to the bottom of the stairs. That's my advice. Don't go in that basement. If people are trying to be nice and they're trying to tell you, don't do that. Learn from what we did. Learn from our experience. Listen, because that advice is gold.
That is a precious advice, and sometimes we don't see it for the amazing wisdom that it comes with. Sometimes we're thinking, they're just out to get me, or we have this preconceived notion that we think the business is a certain way. So anytime one of my friends says I'm a sponge, because if somebody tells me to do something, it's like, yeah, we're going to try this. He's like, really? I was like, if you spend your life being a student, everything becomes a little easier, I think.
Oh, gosh, absolutely.
Are you ready to switch gears?
Sure, let's switch.
We're going to our lightning round. We're doing so well. So easy, light, fun questions, whatever comes to your mind. Don't stress too much about it. Once we start, you'll be like, really? Really, DC? Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Fruit or veggie?
I'm going to say tomato because it's both a fruit and a veggie.
Oh, wow.
I want all.
Smooth. Here's a different one. Valentine's Day or Halloween?
Halloween, hands down.
My kind of girl. Early bird or night owl?
Oh, I've been both. So right now I tend to be an early bird.
If you were stuck in a deserted island and you can only bring 3 things, what would you bring?
Oh, 3 things. Okay. My hubby, my dogs, they come as a unit. And my Kindle.
Spoken like a true reader. He's like, I need some books, I need a people, and definitely the pets.
Notice I didn't even say my computer, my Kindle.
At least I know in a deserted island, you're not writing. It's like, I'm just going to read and take it all in. So here's your last one, hopefully more fun. If you could have any superpower, what would you have?
My superpower? Oh, geez. Is it limited to anything?
Nope, no limits.
Oh, I would definitely be able to materialize anything I wanted at any time.
Nice. I like that. I need to remember that one. That's a really good one. So, madam, where can our listeners find you? Where are you at located? Social media? Where can we get your books? Tell us about it.
I'm all over Amazon. You can also get me in other retailers. I go through Drafted Digital, so whoever they disperse to. There is my website, mysticcatpress.com. I can also be found on my Facebook group at Mystic Cat Press on Facebook. I can be found there under MK Mancos, and Twitter under MK Mancos K Scott. It's all one word. Instagram at MK /Mancos/author. And my email is mysticcat1965 @yahoo.com.
Well, madam, it has been such a pleasure to have you. I'm so glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Just thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. And I will see you online.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, go ahead. Make sure you like this podcast. Give us a review. Share it with your friends. Make sure people are excited to join us. And thank you so much for joining us in another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.